Welcome back to War Thunder Weekly News. This week we have another Q&A and some more information on Chinese tanks. But first, let's get to this Q&A. It's a rather short one, so I'll go through each individual question. The first question, are there going to be Japanese aircraft with 30, 37, and 57mm armor-piercing shells for destroying vehicles? Their answer was no, because there were no shells for those purposes of the sizes for the Japanese aircraft. But they're ignoring some things. I believe the Key 102 had an armor-piercing shell of some sort. I know there's also the Key 109 that has I think it may be a 75 that is designed for destroying tanks. So I think this is just more of an answer of ignorance. Although the Key 45s with the 37s, the ones that don't have armor-piercing shells, they never did. So, but there is one that does. It's an alright shell. It's not gonna win the day or anything, but it works. Next question: will German aviation receive anti-tank missiles with heat warheads capable of penetrating armor on tanks? And apparently they already have them. I haven't tried out those high caliber rockets on the 190s yet. Just haven't I'm not much of a, I like the 109s much better, so we grinded them up a bunch, and I haven't been playing German aircraft as of late, so can't really say. I've heard reports that the rockets aren't working as they should, but Gaijin claims that they are. Next question, someone was asking about the ZSU 37-2 as a 7.0 anti-aircraft gun, and also claims that the Shilka, or whatever it's called, does not compare to its 8.0 counterparts, which I've heard reports that it does compare to its counterparts. Also on that subject, I don't know if the ZSU 37-2 is necessary. It's only another 37, and I believe it's on the same chassis as the ZSU 37. But it would be, it's not like it's gonna hurt anything if it was added. It will be at 7.0 before the 7.7 ZSU 57-2, which is much more destructive. So, well, hopefully they don't add it yet, because I still haven't gotten the ZSU 57-2. Next question was, will radio commands have native speaker voiceovers like crews? The answer is no. What I'm assuming this is referring to is when somebody calls out where an enemy is, or when the commander says that they're taking the A point or whatever, if that would be voiceover to the native language, as in Japanese or German or whatever. I would not want this, because that information is necessary, and I don't know Russian, so it would just be it would be a downside. They would yell out something and I wouldn't know what they're saying. Next question. The next question asked about if Japan will receive a land battleship. And as in land battleship, I'm talking about like the A1E1 or the T-35. Something that level, a low tier, long tank with lots of guns. And the answer was that they were planning on it, but they haven't decided which one. The question also went over heavy tanks for the Japanese line in general, and they haven't. They seem rather indecisive about it. What I'm hoping happens is there's a guy working on a book. I forgot his name, so you're going to have to look it yourself. He's working on a book of Japanese tanks that the history is almost forgotten. And it should be just published, I think it might be in June or something of this year. So I'm hoping that once that book's come out, there will be more information about enough heavy tanks to make a line about it. Right now, all we really have is some early prototypes in the OI, or whatever it's called. As of now, we can deal without them, but I do think Japan needs a heavy tank line. A heavy tank line is kind of important to every nation. They're kind of like they're the ones that get beat around. Medium tanks can't take their place because they're too squishy. Heavy tanks are, well, they're heavy. They can take multiple hits, and while everyone's focused on them, other tanks can take fire. The a possible tank that they could choose is the Type 95 heavy tank. It has terrible armor. It was made sometime in the 30s, and it has a 70mm main cannon with really terrible velocity, and a secondary 37mm cannon, probably one of the old terrible ones. Though I believe it has some heat shells that have some pretty good penetration, about 90mm, So if this thing was at like 1.3 or whatever, it'd be pretty good. Although, pretty sure its armor is awful. Next question was also about Japanese tanks. They were asking if they would add the Type 87 as a counterpart to the ZSU 23-4 and the M163 and the Gepard. And they said that they are planning on it, that they want to do an earlier version. I believe I've heard of an earlier prototype that used the Type 61 body. The final question was, we will see the Type 32 E1 and the M103A2 added or improvements to the current Type 32 heavy tank. Currently, the in-game Type T32 uses the early prototype hull rather than improved T23E1 variant. And they said that they plan to introduce the Type 32 E1 and that the M103A2 is also possible. After that, Gaijin has started some sort of new tradition or whatever, where they, instead of just putting decals up for you to buy with golden eagles, they've made it so you can complete tasks within a 2-week time period to earn these decals. The first one, still going on right now, ends on the 1st of February. We have a U.S. Coast Guard emblem, a U.S. Tank Battalion, a Wolf Pack, a British decal that's just like general instructions. It's pretty funny. A Japanese one of some sort, and another British one of the 2nd Armored Division. It looks pretty cool. After that, something rather unexpected that should explain the Type 62 that randomly appeared is apparently recently the Chinese version of War Thunder has gotten a Chinese tank tech tree. I guess earlier they only had a plane tech tree, but now they have tanks. And this tech tree is really just a Soviet tech tree with a few vehicles changed out. Tier 3 only has 2 tanks, which is not very good at all. Tier 5 also only has 2 tanks. But there's lots of info on these tanks that has been spread about. I'll put some links in the description of the new tanks, or the individual designs. There is the T-34 SPAA. It's a T-34 tank with a new turret that has 2 37mm cannons on it. There's a Type 63, which is like a PT-76, except for it's a float tank. They look similar, but it has, I believe, worse armor, but a better gun. I don't remember the exact details. And then there's the Type 59, which is just a T-54. I don't think it had any differences. It's the Chinese made one, but yeah, it's the same tank really. And then there's a Type 58, which is just a T-34-85, though it has 2 cupolas instead of 1 and a machine gun on top. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing a Chinese tech tree, especially seeing how we already have so many Chinese tanks in game. The only issue is that there's not enough for it to have its own tech tree, and there's no planes really for it to have its own tech tree. Of the tanks on this tree that I could say would belong on their own, not just copy paste Russian tanks, and I'm being extremely liberal here, would be the LVT-4 ZIS-2, Type 58, Type 62, the Type 59, the Type 65, which is just a ZSU 57 on a Type 59 body, the Type 63, and the Chiha Kai, which was, their version was slightly modified. I believe they changed the engine out, but it was a very iconic tank in the Chinese Revolution, so I think for those variants it deserves. But besides that, it's all US tanks and Russian tanks. I believe there's an export variant of the M3A3. I believe that's an export variant, and the M4A4 is an export variant as well. I'm kind of on the fence about those, maybe to give over, but even with those, there's still not enough individual tanks for it to justify its own tree. There's a few extra tanks that you might be able to add if you do some research, but I don't think there's enough. And honestly, I would rather that time be put into an Italian or a French tree prefer to be Italian because they've been waiting longer. On another note, the guy who has been making a 3D model of an AT-177 is apparently finished with it, and he just needs to be approved and everything. And this will most likely end up as a premium, which might annoy quite a few people. I'd prefer it to be in the main tech tree because, I don't know, it looks cool. But what can you do? It's not like Gaijin was going to make one on their own. Also on that note, he seems to have started with another plane, although this one's a bit more obscure, the BV-155. It looks like a crop duster of some sort. It has these big old radiators on the wings or something. Honestly, I wish I had some 3D modeling skills, then I could make my own planes, although I'd probably, I don't know, have a better job. Besides that, there's some minute patches, nothing major or intense. I'd still suggest looking over them, see if they affect any of the vehicles you like. And there's some unofficial ones that Mike Tindy has covered that I don't know why Gaijin doesn't cover these. People like that know things. But whatever. Thanks, Mike. Also, what Mike dug up was the ice fields map for the yet to be announced beta test or whatever. And honestly, it doesn't look like a very interesting map. It's rather dull, small, not a lot of detail about it. It's not like an iconic location or anything. You should put like a Titanic in there somewhere, it'd be funny. But that's about it all for this week. Thanks for watching. If you've liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, I don't want you here. I try to do these every week, so if you want to be caught up on all the War Thunder news, hit the subscribe button and I'll keep making these. I want to try out streaming, though my computer isn't exactly amazing, so I might do one of those in the week. If I do, I'll make a little notification video. But yeah, have a good day.